Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you're watching on YouTube, you can still join if you'd like. You can join our merry band in Zoom. You'll see a link down below. You can register for that. So please try. But if you're here in Zoom, let me show you around a little bit. If you're an attendee, the difference between the attendees and the panelists is that they showed up early. So the attendees, if you're coming in as an attendee, we open the doors at about 6 o'clock in the morning, at least 6. Sometimes they're a little earlier. And you can come in. I'm not going to promise anything for the first half hour. We're just kind of talking. We're drinking our coffee and tea and just having a very wide-ranging conversation. It's a little bit more casual than usual. At 6:30, we hand out the Discord link. So the Discord link is where a lot of us talk between these shows. So that is that's where all the cool kids go, and that is there. And we distribute the link at 6:30. By the time we get to this announcement, it's already expired. So you have to come back tomorrow. But that is where you can keep on talking about these subjects all day and all night, if you'd like. At 6:40, we start the mic checks. Once we've started the mic checks, if you come in and you see the mic checks going, we're not bringing anybody else in at that point. Now, if you want to join before that, get here before 6:40 and put your Zoom hand up, the little blue hand, and it says raise hand. Raise your hand. Let us know that you want to join. Just make sure that you have good audio, good video, and good internet. That's what we're hoping for as you get ready. So if you're as an attendee, though, you have a special power, and that's called the Q&A. We don't have that. Once we're in the panel, we can't ask questions, but you can. So what you can do is you can go down to the Q&A and you can pop questions in there. Make sure that they are short. We have to read these, so you have to make sure that they're quick, and so keep 5 lines is kind of your maximum here. Only 1 question per post. If you put a bunch of questions in, we'll either dismiss it or only read the first one, and then no comments. Don't put comments in the questions. We'll just dismiss those. That's what you use the chat for. So use the chat for comments. You can ask questions amongst yourself as well. You can talk amongst yourself, have a great conversation in the chat room, but just put questions in the Q&A. The thing to remember is that you don't have to ask a question. You can also vote on questions. And so there's over 200 of us here right now. I expect to see lots of votes. So vote on the questions that you want us to move. We do work mostly from the top. We may not work from the top, very top, but we mostly work for the top, and we kind of prioritize that. So definitely, vote your questions up that you'd like us to cover. We generally get to all the questions, but the last questions we move through pretty fast. Some of them might be yes and no as we get to the end of the hour. Coming up this, so make sure that's set up. Don't ask questions for the second hour during the first hour, because we're going to try to manage all of those there. So, and we've got some great second hours coming up. Paul Isaacs is here from Sound Devices. He'll be here at 8 o'clock. He's going to talk about noise assist. Now, Paul is brilliant. So I'm just warning you, he's amazing. And so we'll be able to talk about the noise assist. And you definitely want to, be here for that and ask, you can ask noise assist questions, but, sound devices questions and audio recording questions. The guy knows everything. So definitely that'll be a fun second hour. Tomorrow, Chris Summers is going to be back, and he's going to be we're going to talk about lenses. So Chris is kind of continuing this optical. We talked about filters for an hour last week, and this week we're going to talk about lenses and how they really affect what we see before it gets to the sensor. So Chris Summers is going to be there for that. Leo Laporte is actually joining us on Thursday to talk about hosting and how he got, basically his journey to where he is. So it's basically like triangulation that they have on Twit, except I've reversed it on him. So we get to all be part of the triangulation. So Leo's going to be here on Thursday, so we can ask him lots of questions. And then on Friday, we've got Jeff Keithley. He's going to talk more about cloud. He's been doing a lot more cloud production. He's going to be talking about that. Saturday is the long day. Nick Justison's going to be talking about Unreal. Steve Bays is going to be discussing Final Cut. Alex 40 Goldner, is going to talk more about building graphics for live. And the noon session is still to be determined. Aaron Mailer, who often talks about networking, is in a big show right now, and he's not going to be able to come. So we're figuring out noon. So anyway, that's it. That's what we've got coming up. And I am going to put Phil on the spot, see if he's willing to ask questions. Okay, go ahead, Phil.
How many questions do you see in the Q&A? I see 8.
I see 8.
All right, great. Jeffrey Rees asks, Alex, what do you use your Streamcam for, and would you ever use it for one of these events?
Yeah, so this is This is the Streamcam he's asking about. This I'm not using it right now. Obviously, there's a little bit of an air gap between here and my computer. Yeah, this is my favorite webcam. And it's really hard to get right now. So I apologize for saying this is my favorite. You can't have one. But it's basically an upgrade, a pretty big upgrade from the C920. It obviously has a clamp, but it has a little shell that I don't have right in front of me that you can use to put a quarter 20 on it and snap it in. So I'm pretty happy with it, and I would definitely use it this is what I take on the road if I'm gonna jump into MacBreak or something else like that. I think it's a great webcam for that. For shows, I usually am using bigger cameras and some kind of interface for a lot of the shows, but I think it's probably the best camera as far as getting a web signal. And there's the group of cameras. I think Logitech really has the lead in this area, where the 920, 925, 930 to some degree, and then the Streamcam and the Brio are kind of the leaders, and everything else we've tested a lot of other things and they've come up short. As far as in that like sub 200 webcam world. Joseph?
Yeah, how wide is the focal length? My problem with the C920, I have one that I don't use anymore, is that it was always way too wide, and I kind of like to frame it a little bit closer. So how do you find that camera?
I find it to be, I think it's similar to the C920. I don't think it's much different than that. The 930 is really so generally I don't like the 930 because it's a much wider, it's more like for a conference room. And I think it's one of the problems with conference room cameras is they're set up as a really wide angle to capture the whole conference room. And then it makes the first person look distorted. The 930 looks very wide angle, and I didn't like it, except we did this event recently with ILM where we had folks from Empire Strikes Back, and they all had 930s because that was what was available. It's kind of nice to see their house. So there was I was like, oh, that kind of works, because you got to see Phil Tippett's craziness, and you got to see cool things behind both a couple of the other folks, and so I can see that the wide angle could be interesting if you're really trying to get the environment back there. But the one that I like as far as a small field of view is the Cisco Precision HD, which is only 720, but it's got I think a 50-degree field of view, or 50-something degree field of view, and it's great for that angle. It's got a larger sensor. It's pretty old, and for a while they were selling for like $1,000 each, and it made me feel really silly that I had given away 20 of them. A couple years ago, because I was like, why am I ever going to use these again? Go ahead, Mike, real quick, and then we're going to move on. Can't hear you.
Sorry. Just note that there are reports that that the Cisco cam does not work in later versions of Mac OS.
Quite possible. We haven't used it for a while, but I still have one laying around. Anyway, next question.
Yeah,
hey,
Chris
Alex.
asks
good. Real quick,
Alex,
Brent, go ahead.
You're a bit hot. You're about 5 dB.
It's interesting. I think. Okay, and I will bring it down a little bit. Okay, go ahead. Let's go.
Since Blackmagic seems to be avoiding NDI, is there a good NDI or SRT video switcher hardware device? Would love to have an ATEM Mini Pro like solution.
I think that. I don't.
All in one. The answer is no.
I mean, the TriCaster does it, but I don't know if there's an all. Otherwise, I don't think there's a switcher that does NDI other than that. So, unless anyone else has got a better idea, nope. Okay, that's it. TriCaster. It was built for TriCaster, and it works great with TriCaster. I think that's your entry level for that process. All right, next question.
Yeah, Kenny Hampton wants to know the differences between the MixPre 3 and 2. It seems like the 3 is less expensive. Both are shipping.
There is no MixPre 2. There is a USB Pre 2. There's a USB Pre 2, and that is a audio interface that I don't have, oddly enough, not in my arm's reach.
I wonder if you need version 2.
No. I think that since he said considerably less expensive, I think that the question there is it's a USB Pre 2, which doesn't have any recording. Has an entirely different set of preamps, what the USB Pre 2 does have is it's got not a lot of software, so it's dip switches and it's very stable. It shows up without any drivers. It's still and it has a balanced output, so you're able to do balanced XLR out. as a Swiss Army knife that lets you get stuff in and out of your computer, any computer. I think at one point I owned over 60 of them. So they are they're like little tanks to get audio in and out of your computer. The USB Pre has, and the USB Pre 2, and I know this is, I'm going to assume that that's what you're talking about, but the USB Pre 2, or I'm sorry, MixPre 2 is a completely different device. It's a recording device that acts as an interface. You have MixPre, to make it more confusing, in the MixPre 3.2, you have 32-bit float recording. You have the new interface, the new preamps that are amazing, and the ability to record, delay, do all kinds of other things within it. So it's there's a lot more features to it, but it's also more complex. So that's the thing to know. If I was going to send something to an external person that just needs to interface with their computer, I'd rather have a USB Pre 2. For me, I prefer the MixPre 3 because it's going to have a lot more control. And if I was going to pick one or the other that I had to have, I get the MixPre 3 version 2 so that I can record, take it in the field, use it as an interface, all those things together. Yashai and then George, and then we'll move on.
The most critical difference between the 3 and the 2, it's time code generation. So if you need time code generation, the MixPre 3.2 has it, and the 32-bit floating, as you mentioned before. There are a few other little things like 192 kilohertz recording, but that's about it.
If you're looking at, if again, I distinguish between the USB Pre 2 and the MixPre 3, and if you're distinguishing between the MixPre 3 version 2 and the MixPre 3 version 1, you absolutely get the version 2. Don't even consider the version 1. I mean, it's fine. I mean, you can, unless it's half priced or something like that, you should get the 3. But the USB Pre 2 still has a really useful place in production. Again, it's probably one of the best ways to get audio out of a computer if you don't have something like Dante. I mean, if you have to get back to analog, it's probably one of the best ways to do that that's out there. Anyway, George, go ahead.
So for those that are thinking about the MixPre lineup, I would definitely try to go to the 6. Like right now, I'm using a 3. I have a 6 also, but my return audio from Zoom that I'm listening to is coming in my USB on 2. So you're gonna lose a channel theoretically. So you might wanna, if you plan on using more inputs, you might wanna get the 6 because you're gonna lose one channel for your mix minus.
Yep. Yeah. Go ahead, Rick. You're muted.
I also wanted to mention that previous to this MixPre lineup, the 1 and 2, there's also the MixPre D, which is a very similar concept, but doesn't have the internal recorder.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And with the MixPres, I would definitely get. I mean, think about form factor. I would, if I was going to buy one again, like get something, I would go to George. Is that the MixPre 6 version 2 or whatever is a. You can also do surround records and some other stuff that is useful there.
And 32-bit float, yeah.
And 32-bit. The 32-bit float is really, if you're in the field, it gives you a lot of room for error. So if you're recording interviews or whatever, you have a pretty wide landing strip there, which is really useful. Next question.
Richard Armstrong, a newbie here. Welcome, Richard. Has a question about the best way is to video an augmented reality experience from a third person, much like using Live or Live for VR. But I'm looking for a solution for AR, specifically HoloLens 2. Does anybody know anything about that?
No. Yeah, that's been, a lot of us have tried to, I mean, mixed reality stuff we've done, that's a relatively known way to, known process. But once you're trying to get into what someone's experiencing in that, I think almost all the things that we've seen so far have been simulations, or shot over the shoulder of the camera, a very uncomfortable shoot over the, over the camera. A couple of us have thought about building a rig that has a camera focused on an iPhone that's on the iPhone's on a rig, like on a shoulder rig. I know that'll sound crazy. That you're moving the whole rig around and the camera is literally set up and zoomed in on the interface so that you can see it there for that. But we haven't done that yet. But
I don't think that's crazy. All of the shot on iPhone, ads are definitely using a similar rig with, $20,000-$30,000 in lights.
Well, but I think that you can. The idea though is to have, you just want to take a camera and put it on a rig that'll hold that frame and focus it right onto the iPhone so that it's just seeing it. Now you may also want to see a little bit of the background. So, a bunch of us have been talking about that as we get ready for more AR stuff, but we haven't done it yet. But you can probably expect us to have a second hour about it at some point soon. Anyway, next question.
David Martinez has got some issues while he's streaming. He's got his speakers on and his microphone on, and he's getting feedback. Sounds like a routing issue. He's got a Yamaha switch. He's wanting to put music in the background, but people can hear him with his wireless mic. Any suggestions on how he avoids that feedback?
I am
Go ahead, Brian. I just threw it at him.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The answer is to route the audio properly. I mean, it sounds like we've got a. I mean, that's a terrible answer, and I understand. But it sounds like we've got a Yamaha mixer because it says Yamaha switch, and I suspect he means some kind of Yamaha mixer. And without knowing better what mixer, it's just if your microphone is routed to your speakers, you're going to get feedback. So you have to have a way to route your microphone just to your computer output and your speakers to what's returning from your computer. It's a routing issue.
Yeah, and I mean, there's one thing, if you're having people coming in, you want to think about mix minus, the things that they're going in and how to pass it out. The other thing to remember is that, you're going to get more feedback with omnidirectional mics as opposed to, something with more off-axis rejection. That's why a lot of us, when we're doing stuff around speakers, want to use something that's like a WL 185, as far as a Lav goes, or a SM58, because that's going to have a lot of off-axis rejection. You can get, it's just not going to pick up what the speakers are doing as well. The other thing to do is to make sure that the plane of the speakers is in front of the mic. So, going the other way. So you're behind, a lot of times if I'm up doing an announcement in front of a bunch of people and I stand on stage, on a small event that someone's not managing it, I'm going to look at where the plane of those speakers are and know that I can't walk out in front of those speakers, or I'm going to start getting feedback. Now, there's a lot of other more technical things of finding where that feedback is and doing a notch to get rid of it and everything else. But the basic thing, if you're getting started, is a microphone in front of a speaker is going to create feedback. And so you want to get on the other side of that. And that's the most basic. And then have a microphone that's not as sensitive. You have to get closer to it, but it means it's not picking up as much around the speakers as well. Go ahead, Bill, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I just want to, as soon as anybody says music and they're talking about a recording, I'm going to raise my hand and be the internet scold and just say, be very careful, because if you embed that in your stream in any way, the bots are going to find you. They're going to do a takedown on you. So just be careful when you're injecting music into a stream that you care about, that you don't run afoul of that.
Right. And you can, a lot of times you can test that by having I have test systems because how each song is managed depends on the artist. The artist makes it, defines whether it's going to do a takedown, whether it's just going to monetize your stream, whether it's going to just track you. And so the artists are making those choices. And so a lot of times if we get some music that they want to play, even in ambient around us, if I'm going to stream to YouTube, for instance, I'll do an unlisted event. You can't do private because private isn't seen by the machine, by the YouTube eye. And so, but you can do an unlisted event inside of a test account, which takes a little bit to set up, but you can. Then play all your music through it, see what it does. And if you get warnings that say, hey, we're going to take this down, then you know that you probably shouldn't play that song. And then at the end, when you close it, it'll say, hey, these are being monetized or these being closed. And so there's a bunch of things that you can do there that can let you figure out how each song is being managed, in general. Of course, if you've got the juice, you can get a specific channel, whitelisted by or past listed or whatever we're calling it now, by the CMS. And so the artist can say, this channel can play my song this channel can play my song, for this period of time. That's possible inside the system, but you signing papers with somebody that says that doesn't mean anything. If it's not in the machine, like if it's not in the CMS, in the content management system inside of YouTube, for instance, or Facebook, it's not going to help you at all. So you just need to know that those are some of the rules of engagement. Phil and Justin, and then we'll move on. I'm going to go ahead.
Does doing it when it's as unlisted get marks against you if you just keep it unlisted?
That's why you don't do it on your own event. Don't do it on your own account. That's why I have test accounts. Is because you'll burn up. You're burning up. Those are like burner phones. I've got like 20 of them. And you lose one every once in a while. I'm like, oh, because you get 3 strikes, right? So you play this stuff into it. I built them when it was easier to do it. Now it's harder to do the live, to do the burner accounts. But since I've been doing streaming on YouTube since before it was publicly available, I was able to build a bunch of accounts, and so I just am constantly testing them and rarely get anything. But if I get it, I burned up 3 or 4 of them, by having too many strikes on them. And so anyway, but building some burner accounts are useful for testing stuff, because you don't want to do it to your client account, definitely, and you don't want to do it to your own account, because especially if you're doing it over and over and over again. Justin, you were going to say something?
Yeah, that also applies to live music. So if you have a live band playing, it could still hit the copyright claims. We do church services, we play worship music by other artists, and before the premiere is loaded, it's already hit the copyright claim.
Yeah, it just depends on how close you are to the original. Like as far as what you're playing, because it's just looking for a pattern. It's just like I'm looking for patterns, and it just finds a pattern and goes with it. So if you're way off of the original, then it won't see it. But if you're right on, if you're doing it, following the music, then you will match the pattern.
And if you're a church, that's a good problem to have, because lots of churches don't sound anything like the original.
Yeah,
but some of them do. Some of them get pretty darn good. I mean, I have been introduced to the world of church production, and it's stunning. Like there's just an enormous amount of production value that's now going into a lot of houses of worship. It's kind of an amazing thing.
Yeah,
So,
the YouTube, it's what I find, it's the lyrics. We don't necessarily sound like the track, but because YouTube's algorithm to produce subtitles has become so good, it recognizes the lyrics and it runs the lyrics through the sensor.
That's newer.
That's how we hit the copyright claim. Yeah,
that's fascinating. Interesting.
So
Victor, go ahead. This is a good comment. I'm spending a little more time on this one because it's an important one for a lot of folks. Go ahead, Victor.
Just FYI, I was doing a private stream the other day and played one of my own songs that's been published, and I got a hit on it. I got a take down notice. Happened to be one of my own songs, but they are looking at even when you're doing private test.
Yeah. It now looks at it. For a long time, we had a problem because we would test it in private and then we wouldn't have it. And we're going to move on. We've nailed that one. All right, go ahead. Next question.
Ernie Kapanki, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, asks, what's the best studio software on a MacBook Air for using Samsung S20 Android as a webcam?
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, on the Android device, 2 suggestions. Jan says to use Epic Cam, which is EPOCC Cam, and also Droid Cam. The difference between those is Epic Cam, when you run it, will look like a virtual camera on your Mac. Droid Cam makes a web page that you go to in the browser. You type in the IP address, you can see it. And on the Mac, I would run Mimo Live or something similar. You can, in Mimo Live, if you had Droid Cam, you can do a window capture to capture what's showing up in the browser. But you also could just say select, if it was Epic Cam, you'll see a camera, and you can just select that, and you got it.
Are the NDI, the NDI HX Cam, do those run on Android? The ones that we see on the iPhone?
Yeah, I'm sure you can get Android.
Those are
NDI drivers too. Yeah.
Yeah, those NDI cameras are pretty effective. You can't get them?
Can't, Leland?
It's Apple only, right? Mac only.
Used to be able
iOS only.
Go ahead, Colin, and then Beju, and then Jan. Keep it quick.
You used to be able to get the NDI camera from that package for Android. It still exists if you want to go looking in some of the shady APK archives. We don't recommend that, but it's out there if you want to find it, and it does work. I use it on all of my Android phones without a problem.
Beju, go ahead, quick.
Yeah, just adding on, Colin, that it does work, but it's very much dependent on the sensor on the phone, and it doesn't correct like it does on the iPhone. So you have to test it out with multiple phones. Even the newer phones sometimes have issues.
Jan, 15 seconds.
This is it. I'm using the Epicam right now. I don't normally use it, but I wanted to give you a demonstration.
It's perfect. Epicam on an iPhone or on a Samsung?
This is on an iPhone, but they make software for both.
Perfect. Thanks, Jen. Next question.
Josh Clayton asks, from a technology aspect, Alex, what do you think sports broadcasting in venue looks and sounds like post-pandemic, with or without fans in the stands? Any thoughts?
Well, I think that if they embrace it, we could have a lot of fun. Because now you can do all kinds of things. If you're not worried about the fans, you can put cameras in a lot of better places. I mean, if you look at a basketball game or you look at a football game, so much of the camera placement is based on staying out of the way of paying fans. Once we stop being constrained by that, we can put jibs and cranes and all kinds of things in there. We could have Steadicam operators on the field. We could do there's all kinds of, or near the field. There's all kinds of things that we do to make the fans happy in the stadium that we're not constrained by now. And so if they take advantage of the fact that there aren't as many people or there aren't any people there, it will be a better. I mean, the disadvantage is the crowd is part of the game. It's the reason the crowd goes to the game, and it does make a difference when you're there. I've worked a lot of these events, and really loud crowds make it harder to call plays and, make it harder to do a lot of things and creates energy. So there's a reason in sports that those happen. But from a visual perspective, we could see a lot of innovation happening if we stop trying to just keep it the same and kind of and play with, what can be done. When it comes to, like, for instance, building 3D versions, like right now we could put tons of cameras into a stadium or into a arena to capture, 3D, volumetric capture of a basketball game, for instance. That kind of stuff you couldn't do with all the fans there that you can do right now. And I think that people should take advantage of it. Not necessarily like that it would stay that way, but it'd be a really fun thing to do. At the moment, you could do a lot of interesting things. Jeffrey, then Peter, then Orlando, and then we're going to move on. Go ahead, Jeffrey. Keep it quick because we've got a lot of questions.
Really simply, just watch what the WWE is doing. They've been doing the sports thing all through the COVID thing. Anything. And the one thing about wrestling is they always are pre-adopters of technology. So they'll take the latest stuff and they'll run with it and go from there. So that's where I would go and take a look and see what they're doing.
Yep. Peter.
Very quickly, as Grant will do the test tube, being from Adelaide, Australia, the Australian Football League injected crowd noises into their vacant stadiums over the last few rounds, and it was actually quite good. I was skeptical, but I enjoyed it, and it made a difference because I watched it pre, and there was no one there, and it wasn't the same. And with the injection, it was good.
I think that they should have the volume of the injection should be driven from people hitting their phone like this. So like while you're watching, you force the audience to do something while they're watching the game to make it louder. I think that would be a fun.
That would be awesome.
It would be kind of, you'd have to deal with latency because they'd be cheering for something that already happened. So you have to figure that out. But if you got into low latency, you could have a lot of fun with the fans. You could do like a WebRTC style thing just for the fans who want to see, low latency and respond to it. But I think that you could have, you could even have people screaming into their phones, the whole time. You could just be at home screaming into your phone, and then it all gets all somehow gets summed together and pushed out of the speakers. I think that
they did have either Zoom or Skype, and I'll be very brief, with I think 9 fans. Grant will attest to that, where they crossed over to the squares on the screen, and then they crossed back to the games. Awesome.
That's great.
We're back to laugh tracks.
Yeah, well, but I don't think we have to do laugh tracks if we get everybody to respond in their phones. If people are actually doing it live, and people would get really excited, then we can all be hoarse together.
It's the virtual version of the Jumbotron. Like that's how I picture it.
Yeah, exactly. Orlando, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll echo the crowd noise thing. They're doing a pretty good job of it. I've been watching some La Liga soccer games that started this weekend. The one thing I haven't gotten used to is they actually put in virtual fans in the stands for the
Yeah.
wide shots. Although they
As
were
in
more
the
like colored
cardboard
blurbs, it looked really strange. And
You know, it's
not-
this weird kind of skeuomorphic thing. It's
Yep.
those are, you know, producers who aren't thinking outside the box. Like, how do we incorporate and how do we take advantage of it? Not how do we make it just like what we had before. It's really hard. I mean, you see that in every industry right now, as everyone's trying to figure out how do I reproduce what I had before, rather than how do I take advantage of the fact that there's nobody in the stands. You know, like there's a huge opportunity to innovate right now, and instead we're trying to like how do we still have the thing that we
Well,
had
they're trying to make the $20 back that they lost per ticket or whatever. That's what they're doing. They're charging $20 for cardboard cutouts. You can have yourself in the stand. I think that was the La Liga thing, right?
Well, I don't know. You know, it's different for every sport. From a football perspective, the ticket sales are chicken feed. You know, So anyway, next question.
Carl Guess says he'd like to create a background key once his ATEM Mini arrives. However, he only has about 10 to 12 inches of space between his back and the wall behind him. Is it better to use a fabric drop instead of keying in such a tight space?
Yeah, I mean, the 10 to 12 inches is really short for a key. I think you're going to have a hard time getting a good key that close to the background. You know, I think that you might want to look at a fabric one. Just try not to. I'm not a big fan of fabric ones that are supposed to look like something else. So you know, like try to figure something that's fabric that is a design or something. But I'm not a huge subscriber to like fabric bricks. I tried it. I have some fabric bricks that I tried, and I was like, you know, and so I wouldn't, you know, and I think that like Jeffrey takes it, you know, it has one look right now, and I'll jump to him in a second. But I think you need a little more distance to get a good one. Jeffrey, then Yashai, and then Sky, and then we're going to move on. Try to keep it quick because we've got still a lot of questions.
Side question is, could you do like a lighted type of chroma key where the lights are in the back and like a screen or something like that?
That just becomes a pretty complicated, you know, system because you're already. I'm assuming that since you only have 10 to 12 inches, you don't have any way to. I mean, you could try to do it lit. I mean, you can try to do a monitor that's lit behind it. You know, you could put a lit monitor, you know, as a green screen, which we have done. It's not been super successful, but we have done green, like 65-inch monitors behind people. You just deal with then reflection and other things that are going on with that monitor. Yashai and then Sky.
If you can illuminate the green background with your actually key lights bouncing to a wall in front of you, then it will create a beautiful cover of the green. That's the only way you can get away without too much spill of the green over you. I mean, this is with the, you know, with the situation you're in right now.
Sky? I can't hear you.
This is 8 inches behind me. It's a Westcott. This is what you're seeing from a Westcott with 4 light sources, including a headlight coming down on top of me.
Go ahead and turn it on. The key.
Too many buttons. Too many buttons.
It's pretty good. I mean, it's still a soft edge. You know, that's the hard part. Is it's hard to get. Yeah, the hair detail. It's going to be hard to get with that, but it's not bad. You know, definitely good. It's just hard to get as much detail as you want. To get really good, to do a good virtual, what I guess I'd say is to do a good virtual background, to really make it. I mean, I think Skies is a very reasonably good background. I just, you know, but to do it really well, you need a little bit more space, and you need more control over that background green to knock it all the way out. Like if you're trying to make it seamless, like no one knows that it's there, it's going to be hard to do.
And I need to better light the green. My light element.
It's just hard without that distance. The hard part is you want to light the subject and the green screen separately.
Yes,
and when they're 8 inches apart, it becomes very difficult. You end up, you know. But again, I think that you have to decide what's acceptable for you. You know, I think that Sky is better than 99% of the 98 to 99% of virtual backgrounds. So you're well within a very acceptable range for virtual backgrounds with only 8 inches. So it's definitely possible.
I'll take it.
I like people to just not know that it's there, you know, and if they know it's there, then I feel like I should just use it. I mean, I don't want it to feel like there's a soft edge around it. But again, I'm a visual effects artist that used to have to do this for a living, so I worry about it a lot. Next question.
Yeah, Scott Lawrence wants to start a fight. He's asking for a couple of mic suggestions for general purpose use for YouTube and ATEM Mini.
I think the hard part there is you have to decide what you're going to do with them. Go ahead, Jason.
All around, I'm going to assume you're going to be in a studio, so I'd say the Sennheiser AVX, and it's going to cost as much as your ATEM Mini Pro.
Well, I mean, I think that, I mean, as far as general purpose microphones, I mean, do you want something handheld or something mounted or something head mounted, or, there's all these different, there's not enough information really in that. I told you to give us a short question, but I'm not sure exactly what you need here. So, I think that as a general purpose handheld mic, I would say SM58. As a general purpose mounted mic, I would lean towards a PR40. As a general purpose headset mic, I would lean towards a DPA 4066. Like those are, but they're all different as far as like best you can get for that, for not best, but relatively good for those things. As a voiceover mic, I'd lean towards Neumann's. It just depends on, all these mics mean something, and they have different characteristics. And so you have to kind of really think about what you need. And sometimes I have a lot of mics that I use for different things, shotgun mics and headset mics and lavs and, and they're all tools, that you use for a different environment. Bill and then Jeffrey, and then we're going to move on because we're running out of time.
If that's the equivalent question to asking a cook, what's the best spice? And the answer is they all have value at the right circumstance. And somebody might raise their hand and say, well, salt is the most used. And that's fine until you're cooking with something that's salty to begin with. And then it's overemphasizing something that it already has. So the reason they make 1,000 different kinds of mics is because there are 1,000 different subtle use cases.
Yep, absolutely. Jeffrey, and then we'll move on. Keep it quick.
Since you said YouTube, I would say go to YouTube, find the people that are doing what you're doing, see what they're using for microphones, and maybe emulate
if you like
that.
it. Because there's a lot of YouTubers that use a lot of mics that you're like, ooh, I wouldn't do that. Look at sound that you like, and then look at how you're going to emulate that. Go ahead, Bill. Next question.
Yeah, Yafat Cohen wants to revisit and have you compare the Brio and the Streamcam if you could.
I got the original Brio and I had a lot of problems with it, so that's why I don't tend to lean towards it. It put too much pressure on the OS, but I think the newest one looks a lot better. I know Andy Anako uses it for MacBreak, and he looks amazing. Like it's just really, so the Brio, I don't have enough experience with it. I don't have the newest Brio, so I don't. I have an older one that I don't like, but I don't have the newest one. I keep on looking at Andy's, and I just go, wow, that's great. I think that the Streamcam is a little bit more compact, and I think that their image quality is relatively close to each other, and the Streamcam is a bit less expensive than the Brio. I would love to. I may go back and try to test the Brio at some point in time because again, I keep on looking at Andy's signal in MacBreak, which we'll see later today, and it just looks amazing. So, and I know that's what he's using. Next question.
Greg Gibson asks, what steps do you take to ensure clean audio from remote callers in Zoom or vMix who are not using professional equipment, including any EQ or plugins that you might find useful?
Yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
So if we're talking about Zoom, because the vMix process might be a little bit different, but you go into advanced audio settings, and basically you want to bypass all the processing that Zoom is doing first, so you can hear kind of what's happening in the room. And then the next thing I do is with remote callers, just ask them to grab whatever external type of microphone they might have, if it's earbuds, a USB mic, a little on-camera mic, whatever they might have sitting around, so you're not using the internal microphone in their laptop or whatever kind of computer you have. And then you can also turn on a feature in Zoom in particular to enable original sound. So sometimes
good, and we found that sometimes it's good and sometimes bad because it is removing things from their room, and so you suddenly turn it on, you hear their HVAC or you hear other things that are going on that it was doing work for you. So you do want to, especially though, to Jesse's point, for original audio, if someone's playing music, you need it. Like you can't do music over Zoom without original audio, and it's still okay. It's not. Concerts over Zoom are not really the thing. It's good for a lot of things. I love it, obviously, for this kind of thing, but for that, it's not necessarily. It's not its area of strength. Yishai?
And if all that is not working well, the best thing to do is take the stem of this recording, run it through RX, and clean it up, and just use it.
Yeah, and the other thing is just really train. We train people pretty heavily. You can see it in this audience here, is to mute often. You know, so training people on where the mute is and how the mute works and everything else cleans up your overall thing. It doesn't necessarily clean up their mic, but it definitely cleans up the show. Is to have people pretty aggressively using. It's better to every once in a while say you're muted than to constantly be dealing with it. Sky and then Leland, but 15 seconds each.
RX. All I need to do is, if Yishai can tell me RX, I need to understand that.
Isotrope. It's not isotrope for in post. You'd fix it in post. It wouldn't be for live. Leland?
Yeah, and just a little prep work for people who are going to be on mic. It's good to get them placed in a quiet location. Make sure their pets are put away. Make sure the kids are being taken care of. Make sure that they have placement of the mic up close enough to their mouth, and make sure that they don't have speakers close enough so that if they are having to run on speakers, get them some headphones or some earbuds or something at least, so they're not giving you the acoustic echo.
And definitely their environment is as important as their microphone. So a lot of times you move them to another room. You get them out of there, or we've had people for a larger event that we can't go and send something or whatever. We get them to go find blankets in the go find a bunch of blankets and just hang them over the stuff in front of you. And it makes an enormous difference. Just getting a bunch of thick blankets that you have laying around and then just hanging them over chairs in front of you or whatever. For a little meeting, it's not worth it. But if they're going to be broadcasted in front of a bunch of people and you're bringing them in, just getting them to put soft things up in their room will do more than almost anything else. If you can't send them things, it's going to make a huge difference in the audio. Next question.
Read the closet.
Closet, right? Yeah, the hard part is then it doesn't look good if you're on Zoom. Next question.
Alex Holness asks, any recommendations for an entry-level fluid head video tripod? Budget's around under 400.
Oh, I know one. Sorry, it took me a second. There is a hold on. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. Does anyone else have any recommendations? There is a
Manfrotto is under 400.
Yeah, Manfrotto's got a lot of.
I find that the Manfrotto ones that are within that price range are good. I'm just looking for my orders here because I've ordered some that I've. Let's see if I can find it real quickly here.
Also, the weight of your camera. Take that into consideration too.
Well, I'm reading that as the entire tripod and head for under 400.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah, different question.
Yeah. So the let's see here. The one that I have used that successfully that is a head. It's not the. Again, under $400. But if you go up to Amazon, you're going to find stuff. If you're looking for longevity and so on and so forth, buying under $400 is often not going to be the best place. But one that I have bought for projects where I didn't know if I was going to get the tripods back, but I still needed something that was relatively strong and able was the Kayer. It's Cayer. The BV30L, I think, is one that I got. It had a 13-pound limit. It's about $150 on Amazon. It's light and it probably won't last forever. If you treat it very well, it'll last for a little while. And it's and I've used these in I have one the teleprompter that I have in front of me right now is on that. so because I was like, I don't need to buy an expensive tripod to put that on, but I want it to be a little bit bigger and I want it to handle a little bit more, but I don't need to spend money on it to do it. But it's a fluid head. It's not the best fluid head in the world. The problem for me is that I use like Sackler, or O'Connor's 2575s and other things like that, and so I'm used to really heavy heads. And so to me, the Ace tripod is kind of the smallest tripod that I generally use, but once I get below that, I kind of just grab something that works from a fluid head perspective. But I think that there are a couple of them like that on Amazon that I think that you can do. Guy, do you have any suggestions for that? Are there any tripods in that price range that you'd suggest?
I do like the Benrose, but it's one of those things where you gotta
go local if you can and just try them out, because there's such a difference in a true fluid head versus some of these knockoff ones. And I mean, they're great if you're just gonna lock it down, but if you actually need to follow some action, if you're doing sports or something like that, I mean, it's nice to go and either borrow a friend's, go to a rental house and try something out. But Benro under $400, that's where I'd be looking.
Yeah, Benro. Yeah, and the Care and the Benro to me are kind of the same in the same world. But the Benro, I have some other I did 27 shows on a bunch of Benros. So because it was just like we didn't have the budget to do. They had to sit there all week and then use them 3 times, and it wasn't worth putting heavy tripods. But they were mostly locked off and a couple of adjustments. Where a high quality fluid head's going to make a difference is in the pans. In your pan and tilts is where. And just how much weight they can manage. But I don't even think, I mean, again, I think that your entry level, the O'Connor 1030s or whatever their equivalent is kind of, to me, entry level of something that I'm actually willing to pan during a show, live. And so those are a fair bit more expensive. And so I think those are where the heads start for me. Maybe Sackler 18s or something like that. After that, I want them to be fluid heads, but I'm not trying to do moving shots. I'm trying to I just want a fluid head so I can get it to where I need it to go to cut to it, which is two different things. But the weight of that head, what you're looking for in the head is the weight of the head and the amount of drag that you can add and how that drag is added. So when you're looking at it, you can close up the drag on both the pan and the tilt. So it's how much you're pushing up against that to get this kind of nice soft, and then also what the play is in that. So does it have a little bit of a move? Does it have a little bit of life before the drag hits? And that's what you're paying for. Is you're paying for no life before the drag hits, a lot of control over that drag, and a lot of weight that's going to allow you to make that smooth shot before you move to a gear head, which is the most awesome thing ever. Anyway, but when you're thinking about fluid heads, those are kind of the things that you're paying for is weight and the quality of the drag, and then how much weight it can manage, because it will, if you put a lot more weight on it than the head is designed for, it'll start to bleed fluid, and I've done that a couple times. Ace tripods can't handle. Just in case you're wondering, they don't handle 24-inch teleprompters forever before they start to bleed. Anyway, we're going to move on. We overtalked that one a little bit. We're now in the speed round.
Nazim Beltran wants to replace his Lav Plus. I think he's talking about the Rode Lav Plus clip-ons for outdoor live options. Any alternatives that are valid and don't cost an arm or a leg or an Alex?
Well, I think all these clip-ons are too far away in the sense that they're too small of a pickup. I think that you're better off getting a separate mic that's going to work with your Rode Go. Like get a Rode Go, not a clip-on, and have an external input. Then there's lots of options. I mean, I think a lot of us have used the Samsung 10Ts, as a cheaper headset option. There's other lab options, but getting away from the clip. I don't think any of these clip-ons sound good. But that's kind of my 2 cents there. Guy, have you seen anything else passing through in that area?
No, I mean, the Lav Go is pretty cool. What a lot of people don't think of in the chain is the fact that the Lav, the receiver and transmitter of the whole system can boost cleanly up the signal. So a lot of people just don't think of, I'm plugging this straight into some not so great device, and then when I turn it up, I hear a bunch of gain and noise. But yeah, I'm digging just the Rode Go with either a Lav or a head-worn mic, because like right now I have a fan down below, and Brian was, or somebody earlier was saying that they can hear the noise on it. So I mean, this is with the original sound off, and this is with the original sound on. I don't know if you can hear that fan in my room. Off, on.
It's pretty subtle, but yeah, it's there.
Yeah, it's there. All right. Okay, we're gonna keep moving. Next question. Oh, Gian, did you have anything to add to that?
I've been doing a podcast in my car using my iPhone and the Samsung clip mic, and it works great. It blocks out most of the noise from the car, and so I would recommend that.
Okay, sounds good. All right, next question.
Ben Bray, I'm going to shorten this, wants to know the best combination of settings in Zoom to maximize audience noise, crowd noise.
I think we should try it right now. Grant had talked about it before. We're going to try it. Okay, we're going to do it really quickly because we don't have a lot of time. Everybody unmute your mic, and when I say cheer, cheer. Okay, everybody everybody in this panel, unmute your mic. We don't usually ask for this. There'll be a lot of.
This is going to get loud.
Okay, ready? and cheer. Yay! Okay. That's our test. I don't know
I
if it's
heard
picking up
5 of us.
everyone or if it's it seems like it's not getting all of us. It seems like there's some
the automatic ducking was trying to cope.
Trying to do stuff.
Yeah,
so
it reaches a
It'll be
maximum and then
interesting
that's
to see
it.
Sorry, go ahead. Jason?
I think it has a maximum number of it. Okay, we're going to keep moving because we're running out of time. We don't know. We don't know. I think you're getting 5 or 6 is about the most you're going to get, and then after that, it gets all canceled out. I think it's decided that's how many can have a conversation, and then after that, we're going to cut everybody else
It'd
out.
be interesting to see if everyone had the same set of 5.
Oh, right. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
And Alex,
all
get
right,
back
all right.
to us when you get the takedown notice.
We're gonna move fast.
Derek Hirsch wants to know: is there an online tool to be able to hear the difference between millisecond and microsecond latency?
You need microsecond latency?
He just wants to hear the difference.
I think he's trying to figure out how to measure the delay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the I don't know if there's an online tool to do it, but it sounds like a really interesting online tool to have. One of the ways that I tuned my ear was that I have a track. I record a track from the camera and a mic into the camera, or a mic separately embedded into it in the other channel, and you hear both of them. So one's delayed and one isn't. And when you kind of match them together, the best tool is watching things that have been embedded in the camera along with it, and watching those videos and really studying how people say P's and how they do other things like that to make sure, and you'll get used to how that looks. Brian, go ahead, and we're going to 30 seconds.
Yeah, I posted a link in the chat to a YouTube video that Dave Ratt did that is fascinating because it shows that you can clearly hear 1/10,000th of a second difference in your left ear versus your right ear. It's just as a mental exercise. It's a really, really cool video to check out with
Right, but a microsecond is a millionth of a millisecond. That's crazy.
Micro would probably be too small, but milliseconds might make sense. All right, next question.
You could just use a digital delay plug-in and change it and hear
Play with it.
Yeah. All right. Frank Lucian wants to know, will a MixPre 3.2 work well with a MacBook Pro mid 2015 and take advantage of 32-bit float?
Absolutely.
32-bit float doesn't have anything to do with the with its interface. Although I don't think that there's a lot of things on the other side live that are going to take advantage of the 32-bit float. You're going to have and we have somebody. If only we had someone from Sound Devices that could answer that question. Maybe let's save that one.
I'm here.
Oh, there he is. There's Paul. Paul.
I know a few things about MixPre.
So the question is will the older MacBook Pro work well with the USB, the MixPre 3.2, and be able to take advantage of 32-bit float?
If the MacBook supports Catalina and above, sure, yes, because Apple didn't support full 32-bit float until Catalina, so there should be no problem. I mean, you're talking about using obviously the MixPre as a USB audio interface there, 32-bit float, right? Yeah. Yep. There you go.
Awesome.
Simple answer.
There you go. That's
simple question.
That's about as authoritative of an answer as we're going to get in the whole hour. All right. So next question.
Dan Burt wants to have recommendations on head-worn earpieces, specific earpiece headphones, speakers on your laptop. What are people using?
I can tell you what I'm using, and then there's everybody can talk about what they use here. I have the 2 things that I use mostly are 3 things, I guess. I have the other one around here somewhere. This is an Audio Implements earpiece. That's what I'm wearing right now. This is just another one. Audio Implements. There's less expensive version is Auto. That's here, and these are all in ear that kind of go up and over. I also have Ear Heroes, which I can't seem to put my finger on right now. Ear Heroes, these are dual ear. They are the speakers, so to speak. The outputs are in the ears and they sound a little bit clearer than the headsets. And then there was someone that Mickey. What do you use?
The Bumblebee.
The
Bumblebee Sidekick. Yeah.
Bumblebee Sidekicks. Bill and then MJ really quickly.
I probably had the cheapest thing here, and I can't hear anybody now, but this is from, I think, Far End on Amazon. It was about $20, and it's specifically designed to collapse into mono 2 channels so that you can get everything in one ear.
Oh, that's nice. And then MJ, real quick.
Yeah, just second for the ear heroes. Really like them for the price and comfort. Wear them all day long.
Yep, absolutely. Next question. We're almost out of time.
Aki from South Africa, greetings. Wants to stream from OBS into Zoom, having trouble using a virtual camera. Can't get the audio to stream onto Zoom through OBS. Any thoughts?
Go ahead, Mike.
Did you say Windows or Mac?
Both. Yeah, he said
Seems
both.
to be both.
Yeah, on Windows, VB cable will capture your output and route it into OBS. So you just have Zoom send the VB cable and you pick up that as an input in OBS. And on Mac, Soundflower might not work. You might have to buy Loopback, which is a ridiculous $100.
Black Hole works good. It's free.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go.
And next question. We're gonna move fast.
Oh, sorry, that was me. Richard Armstrong wants to refresh his AR question before. He said, to be more clear on what I was asking, he wants to create. He puts
we
a
can't
link.
we can't do that in a time.
Okay,
Yeah.
Gabriel Eng, he's getting into the habit of slating for identifying clips with shot names and takes. The poster frame in Finder and Final Cut Pro is not the first frame. What are the best slating practices in production?
Consistency, period.
Well, so I guess all I would say is that I don't know if what you're doing there, but what we do is we make sure, I don't know why it wouldn't be the first frame, but typically what we do is we make sure that the slate is up before we start rolling the clip. So before you start rolling, make sure your slate is full frame in the camera, and that way your first frame of every video is the slate. And then you get it ready, you're ready to roll camera, and then mark it, and you mark it. If you don't have that slate in there on the first frame, you end up having to skip into all of them to find that. I haven't seen it where it hasn't been the first frame when I look at it, so that's a new one. Next question.
Ben Walter wants to know, did you order your open core computer before they were shut down?
No, I did not. Next question.
Brian Anderson asks of an upcoming we just had this. Sorry.
Okay.
Ben Anglin, any thoughts on the BirdDog NDI ecosystem, cameras, decoders, and such for an installed deployment at a church?
Go ahead,
building?
MJ.
Yeah, I would just say if you're installing anything and doing any infrastructure, it's great to have IP everywhere, but still having SDI or fiber to the locations just so you're kind of future proof. I wouldn't design a whole system around NDI going out the chute right now.
In general, if you're installing something, running cable is a pain in the neck. Run lots of it. It's not the cable itself that's expensive. It's the sewing it through all the things. And at best, when there was someone that was building, they were building a new center. It's a pretty big center, and they asked me what I would do, and I said I'd run redundant, diverse TAC-12s into every room. Just like you can do everything else you want. You can put some cat and you can put all kinds of other things in there, but just run a bunch of glass coming into the room in two different places with two different routes, so it can't be cut, because you're laying it's compared to the rest of the production, it's nothing, of building a whole building and everything else, and just get all that stuff in there so that because two TAC-12s going into every room, that will last for a century. And so you can add copper and Ethernet and all the other things you want to do, but just add a bunch of glass into all the rooms if you're building it, because it used to be fiber was expensive. It's just not anymore. Go ahead, Leland. You got
just a quick one on the BirdDog NDI ecosystem. If you're using vMix for any reason, there's been some structurally irrelevant bugs that we're running into that are just shutting down vMix completely. We've seen it on a couple of different machine units. Yeah. So it's going back to BirdDog. So we're going to have to look into it deeper. We've
seen a lot of technical issues with BirdDog recently, both in productions that I've worked on as well as folks in this group. So you just want to be careful of what they're a little on the outer edge. Next question. I think the last question.
So just to summarize Brian Anderson's questions, needs to keep everything encrypted during an edit. Any suggestions for keeping his files encrypted during an edit? He suggests the Apricorn Aegis Padlock SSD. Anybody use anything like that?
No. I don't know if any of us knows how to. Go ahead, Victor. 30 seconds.
Samsung's new T7 SSDs have a version that is lockable through fingerprint.
Yep. Yeah, but the interface sucks. Sorry.
But there's that. Anyway, so last question.
Last one.
Hi, Adjoa.
Adjoa says, Adjoa, thank you.
Adjoa.
How often do you explain how to optimize Zoom meeting formats like this one?
I don't know if I've ever explained it. Well, I mean, we talk to people about it, but you know, I think a lot of times we're just doing it, and I don't even know if we have it optimized yet. You know, you know, it's still a work in progress. I think the only thing that I would say is that, you know, doing a lot of it helps. I mean, we do this every day, and you know, the first couple were not that way, and doing it like we would be in the dark ages now if we had been doing it once a week. You know, it's that we have a bunch of folks that have gathered. There's a bunch of people that have come. They've decided that our way is onerous and left.
Happy 85th day of celebration. Happy 85th.
Yeah. But I think that it's partially that we've just figured out how to, as a habit, you know, figure it out, and we keep on working on each other and pushing each other to do it better. And that's how you get here. But what you see here does not happen from taking a class or looking at something. This happens from an enormous amount of work and practice that everybody in this panel and everybody that's in the attendees is doing on a daily basis. So anyway, now it is time for us to shift gears. We have moved into the second hour. so we we're excited. We learned, by the way, I learned that somebody did this during one of our shows, and then this became the clapping, and I didn't know that this is actually clapping for ASL. So this is our, you know, so we've been doing this a bunch.
Oh, that came from Oliver. Oliver saying, "I can't hear you clapping." That's how you do it.
Oh, okay. Anyway, so that was it's an interesting thing. So for those of you that are new, the second hour we shift gears. We don't have general questions. We move to a specific subject, and so our subject today. I'm so excited. We have Paul Isaacs here, and Paul is Paul. What's your official title? I just know Paul at Sound Devices. I get to see him all the time when we're at conferences. But what's your official title at Sound Devices?
I can't even remember myself, to be quite honest. It's some long stream of words. I think it's Director of Product Management and Design or something like that. That's what it is currently anyway.
What do you actually do at Sound Devices?
Well, a bit of everything. I obviously